Hi everybody, it's Henry again from FineLimeGames, and today we're going to be going over the Shark Archetype. This is the first in a series of archetypes I'm going to go over, featuring cards from both the two-player starter sets as well as the soon-to-be released Core Set 1. Sharks are a great place to start because A, they are one of my favorites, and B, they are one of the biggest archetypes thus far with a lot of animals and a lot of adaptation support. So just a reminder, the Core Set 1 cards will be coming out via booster packs very soon on the Game Crafter. I'll be sure to include a link to that in the description once it's out. And all of these cards are currently available to play on Untap. Going ahead and getting started here, we've got the cheapest card, cheapest shark so far in the archetype. That is the Cat Shark. It is really the only forager that sharks have. They really rely on other fish cards to be the primary foragers, and they're more focused on attacking. But the cat shark, forages for 4 for a cost of 7, which is pretty good. One kind of theme that sharks have is that they have very good stats. All of them have very good stats, and the cat shark is no exception. For 7 food, you get 6 health, 3 attack, and 1 defense. That's great for something that costs 7. And it's basically a support card for the shark archetype. When this animal comes into play, you may add 1 shark from your discard pile back into your deck and shuffle your deck. So it's just a way to recur sharks that you've already played, which can be big once you start running out of resources. The second one should not be new to anyone who's seen the fish video for the fish versus birds overview. It's the bonnethead. Alex Tedrow, great friend of mine, best Kingdom Animalia player in the world. This is the bane of his existence. He utterly hates this card. I love it. Again, has great stats for the amount of food you're paying. 10 food for 9 health, 5 attack, 1 defense, and speed of 6. That is fantastic, and it is also support to get your sharks rolling. When this animal is played into the front row, you may search your deck for any shark and add it to your hand. So this is a great way of finding exactly the shark you're looking for, and can work in a lot of combos. Next up, we have the black tip reef shark. This is where we start getting into attackers. This is definitely an early game attacker. It costs 12, has 10 health, 6 attack, 1 defense with a speed of 6, which is, again, very good stats. That's a theme for the sharks. This is from the core set as well. This animal costs 2 food to play if you already played another shark this round. So, as I'll discuss after we go over all the cards, there's a lot of combo plays that can be made with sharks, and this is kind of a tool in that. It's a decent early game attacker, very good if your opponent doesn't have anything big in their front row. This can beat a lot of things in the front row as well as get to the back row. So very good, early standard shark that benefits from team play. Another shark that you guys have already seen is the black tip shark. This is the standard shark. 15 attack, cost 15 for 12 health, 8 attack, 1 defense, 6 speed. 6 speed is kind of the standard for sharks. There's a few that are above and below that, but 6 speed is kind of where they're at, which is a good speed tier to be in. And this is just another one that benefits from team play. This animal gains +1 attack for each other shark you control. So only gets better with a lot of sharks. I said in the fish video that this card gets better in the core set because there are way more sharks, including cheap sharks like the black tip, reef shark, and the cat shark. Next up, we have one of my favorite sharks in real life, and a great card, the blue shark. Costs 20 food for 15 health, 10 attack, 1 defense, 7 speed, so a bit faster, and has great ability. This animal's attacks cannot be evaded. This animal costs 5 less to play if you play another shark this round. So, again, this feeds into combo plays, which I'll go over later, but you can get this out for very cheap. 15 food for this shark is fantastic. I also don't want to understate the fact that this animal's attacks cannot be evaded. That can be very impactful. It can be impactful in objective play, and when your opponent is running birds or insects or something that have a lot of evasion, the fact that they don't even get a chance to evade this animal's attacks and it's throwing 10 damage is very, very good. Next up, we have another shark that has already been released. It's the sand tiger shark. Costs 21 food for 18 health, 12 attack, 1 defense, and 4 speed. So a very slow shark, and it has just a bit of a downside in its ability that it has to stay in the front and can't be moved out of the front. So, that's not that much of a downside, but occasionally it comes up. But this is kind of a bulky, slow, hard-hitting shark that doesn't have a whole lot of special things about it, but it does its job well of being decently well priced for what you get. Next up, we have another new card. This one is the first new rare for the sharks. Is the Mako Shark. It has costs 24 food, has 16 health, 12 attack, 1 defense, and 10 speed. This is one of the fastest animals in the game. This is the fastest fish so far, and it probably will stay as the fastest fish. So a great option even in non-shark decks for a real speed demon, and a lot going on in the ability. This animal's attack and speed cannot be reduced. When this animal deals damage while attacking, you may remove 1 damage counter from it, and when this animal scores a kill, gain +3 food. So a lot of different things happening in that ability. Your attack and speed are never going to be reduced, so you're going to stay as one of the fastest animals in the game, and 12 attack is very strong. The healing 1 damage from it can come up. It can be useful from time to time. There are a lot of cases where that's not going to do much, but there are a few times where that's going to save this shark's life. And then when it scores a kill, gain 3 food, that can be very big. That can enable a lot of plays. 3 food is not a small amount of food. And so for an animal that's going to be going first almost every time, that deals 12 damage, it's going to be scoring quite a few kills. If you can get this out early in a set and just have it go ham, or bring it out to kill a priority target before it can activate, that can be really, really big. So the Mako Shark should be a staple of all shark decks. Next up, we have the Tiger Shark. This is the rare from the Fish vs. Bird starter set. This was the big boss. 25 food for 22 health, 15 attack, 1 defense, 5 speed. It is a very effective attacker. It is quite tanky for 25 food. 22 health and 1 defense is very good. A bit on the slower side, but with that ability of being able to ignore the target's defense, that can be great against things like turtles or a lot of bugs and invertebrates that have high defense. This can be very good against those, and high defense can be really annoying, and this card says, yeah, no problem. And finally, we have the most expensive animal in the game, the hardest hitting animal in the game. It is the king of sharks, the great white shark. This thing is an absolute beast. 28 health for 34 food, with 20 attack, which is far and away the highest in the game, 1 defense, 6 speed, and quite the wall of text for an ability, so I'll break it down. This animal can only be played if you sacrifice another animal you control. This animal cannot attack the turn it's played. When this animal comes into play, you may deal 5 damage to any opposing animal in the front row. So, again, like the Mako Shark, a lot going on here. This is one of the only animals in the game where you can only play it by sacrificing something else. Normally, if you have enough food to play the Great White Shark, and it is kind of a game warping animal, and so you don't really mind sacrificing something in a lot of cases. Something I like to do when I play this card is to sacrifice, a forager that is already low on health or is really cheap, or sacrifice something in my front row that has already been damaged. There's a lot of combos you can do with this with some cards that we'll get to in a second here. But I like to get rid of something cheap or something that's damaged and play this. And the ability to deal 5 damage instantly to something in your opponent's front row can be very big, especially if it's something fast or something really dangerous that would be able to kill something you control in return. That 5 damage ignores defense, so that can get through a lot of tanky things. And while you can't attack with this thing on the first turn, nothing is going to one-shot this, and you shouldn't be playing this when your opponent has a really, really full board. This is meant to be your big play where your opponent really has no way to deal with it. Very few things can take a hit of 20 damage, and 6 speed is very respectable, so it's not like this is a very slow animal. So, Great White Shark, it really lives up to its King of the Sea mantra, and it's a very, very strong card. Very, very expensive card too. You won't be playing very many Great White Sharks, but when you do, they're almost all going to be very impactful. Jumping into the adaptations specifically for sharks now, We've got Replaceable Teeth. This is one that's in the 2-player starter set, so you've seen this. It's very basic. Shark, this is equipped to, gets 1 attack, and its attack cannot be reduced. Not used a ton, honestly. It's a pretty vanilla adaptation, but sometimes you need that 1 extra attack to get over something, and it's a permanent 1 attack. It's not, one and done kind of thing. So you attach this to something and it gets just a little bit more lethal. Next up, we have Shark Bite. This is an adaptation from the core set. When you play this card you may play this card at the start of the combat phase if you control a shark in your front row. Deal 3 damage to any opposing animal. Notice how that doesn't say opposing animal in the front row. Your shark has to be in the front row, but you can deal 3 damage to any opposing animal. So you can play a shark at the front and then play this for 2. Boom, your opponent loses a forager, or you've killed something fast and dangerous like a cheetah or something like that. This has a lot of flexibility at instant speed. It's very, very good. If you're playing a shark deck, you're almost always going to have sharks in your front row, so you're going to be getting that off a lot. Now we have Blood in the Water. It is a 2-cost instant adaptation. You may play this card when a shark you control is attacking a damaged enemy. That attack cannot be evaded. This, would be useless on something like the blue shark, but on everybody else, this can be very, very good in that sharks hit hard, but a great way to get around something that hits hard is to completely evade the attack. So there's, a lot of insects have high evasion, a lot of birds have high evasion. Every faction has a few things with high evasion, and this just says, hey, if I'm attacking something that's damaged, you can't evade, which can be very strong. It's great to be able to guarantee damage like that. That can really catch your opponent by surprise because, again, at instant speed, your opponent might not be expecting that. Now we have a couple cards that were in the 2-player starter set that have to do with sharks. First is Fish Are Friends. As long as you control at least 1 shark and 1 non-shark, all fish cost 1 less for you to play. This is a persistent adaptation, so you're going to want to get this out as early as possible in a set, but this can save you a lot of food. If you're able to play 4 or 5 fish after you play this card, you're saving, again, 4 or 5 food, and that can be really big. That really adds up. Should be noted, you don't have to have both a shark and a non-shark to play this card. You can play this at any time. The effect is only active when you control 1 shark and 1 non-shark, so worth keeping in mind. We also have Fisher Food, kind of the counterpart to Fisher Friends. This costs 2 food, and during the management phase, you may sacrifice a fish you control. If you do, you may play a shark from your hand with a food cost reduced by 5, plus the cost of the sacrificed fish. This card is often bonkers. And a lot of times, this is an incredibly, incredibly strong card. This, there is no ban list, there is no limited list so far, but if there is one in the future, this might be on there because this card is so incredibly strong. So it's just a fish. It's not a non-shark fish. It's any fish you control. That can be very, very good early game. You play something that costs 7 or 8 food. Let's say your opponent damages it. It's going to die this turn anyway. You sacrifice it, and let's say maybe it costs 10 food, the thing you sacrifice. You can play a shark for 15 less food. The adaptation costs 2, so technically, you're paying, 13 less food to play something. This can open up a huge amount of plays and a lot of combos that I'll get into in a second here. But keep this in mind. This is an absolute staple of every single shark deck. Finally, we have the rare adaptation. Each faction in the core set 1 has 1 rare adaptation, and it's a very unique kind of persistent adaptation that I'll get into here. This one works with sharks. The other ones you work with different like archetypes or just generally with their factions, but this one specifically works with sharks. It costs 4 food, and it's very unique. This card remains in the field between sets. This card's effects are activated each time you play a shark, and they're activated in order. So the first time you play a shark, you draw 1 card. The second time you play a shark, you deal 3 damage to any opposing animal. And again, that can be front row or back row, very strong. And the third time you play a shark, the next shark you play costs 5 less food. And after you play that third shark, this adaptation goes away. But this stays on the field between sets. So when you scoop up all the cards off the field and put them in your discard pile at the end of the set, this stays. And so it's something that you can invest in, and you're almost always going to get all 3 effects off. You don't have to worry about playing it and then the set ending. This is on the scale of power of the rare adaptations that do this kind of stuff. It's probably has the weakest effects, but it is also far and away the easiest to activate. You just have to play sharks. So I've kept saying throughout this video I'm going to get into combos. I'll get into a couple of the combos here. So Rulers of the Sea is a staple in shark decks, and you want to get this out as early as you can while you can still afford it. You don't want to cripple your economy by playing a 4-cost adaptation that doesn't immediately do something. But a lot of the sharks work together. You have the cat shark sending sharks from your discard pile to your deck, so you're not running out of resources. You've got bonnet heads to search specific sharks out of your deck, and then you have black tip reef sharks and blue sharks that get cheaper if you already played a shark this round. And the big linchpin in all of this is fish or food. You can play sharks basically for free when you play fish or food. So I'll give an example here. Let's say you start off the turn by playing a bonnet head. You pay 10 and you play a bonnet head. And let's say that just happens to be, the third, you've gotten to number 3 here. So you played the bonnet head. Bonnet head is the third shark you've played. The next shark you play costs 5 less food. With your bonnet head, you can search out a blue shark. So you search your deck and add a blue shark to your hand. This blue shark now costs 5 less to play because of its ability, because you've played a bonnet head. So it costs 15. Now this Rulers of the Sea has reduced it by another 5. So now this blue shark costs 10. Now you can play fish or food for 2 food, sacrifice the bonnet head, and play this blue shark for free. You're even wasting a little bit of food there. You can play a blue shark for absolutely free. Sure, you're sacrificing a bonnet head, but you've paid 12 food basically to play a very strong shark for free. And that can happen. You can play black tip sharks for free like that. You can reduce the costs of great whites down to like 20 food or 19 food. That's absurd. And so working in conjunction with fish or food, Rulers of the Sea, and then the sharks that reduce their cost if you already played something else, that can be a very strong combo. And the bonnet head can grab any shark. And if it's a shark that's not in your deck, you just play a cat shark to get it from your discard pile back into your deck, and then your bonnet head can search it. That's a hallmark of sharks, is that they search each other. They're very good at finding one another, and they're very good at playing off of each other. So, this is probably right now one of the strongest archetypes in the game. You're going to want to be building decks that obviously have a lot of other cheap foragers, but this setup of sharks, any combination of these can be all the attackers you need. You don't need any other kinds of attackers. If I'm building a shark deck, I'm probably running 3 cat sharks, 3 bonnet heads, 2 or 3 black tip reef sharks, 2 or 3 black tip sharks. I really think the blue shark is very, very strong, so I'm probably running 3 of these, maybe 2 of them. 1 or 2 sand tigers, 1 or 2 tiger sharks. The mako shark is a very, very effective attacker that's not too expensive, so definitely 2 to 3 of these. And then 1 or 2 of these big boys right here, the great whites. And that's all you need. And then just foragers from there, maybe a dozen other foragers. Along with, you're going to want to run 3 copies of Fish or Food for sure. You're going to want to run 2 or 3 copies of Rulers of the Sea, maybe a few copies of Fish or Friends, and then any assortment of a few of these other 3 adaptations. I just want to real quickly, I know the video is getting long, but I really want to go into objectives that are good with sharks, just as a suggestion for deck building. Funny enough, all 3 desert objectives are very good with sharks, because all of these are first to score a kill or first to score 2 kills. Sharks are very good at scoring kills. They have great stats, quite a bit of attack. They're generally pretty fast, and they're not super fragile, and so they're great options for scoring kills quickly, especially something like the mako shark or the blue shark, because those are fast and they have good base stats, and you can play them for cheap when you combo stuff, like I was talking about earlier. So I know it doesn't make sense for sharks to be in the desert, but these are objectives that they really, really like, along with deep sea, because deep sea is, similar to a desert, scoring first player to score 2 kills. So same idea. This is also a good one because if you use a bunch of your sharks in your previous sets, you play this and you get access to all those resources again. It's got to be noted with this objective specifically, and we'll go into this more when I do. I think I've already done the breakdown of this. When you're searching, so like off a bonnet head, you are adding from you're looking in the deck that you're using currently. So that's your discard pile that you flipped over. That's what you search in. You don't search in your main deck, so you gotta keep that in mind. That comes up from time to time. The other objectives that I think sharks are really good at, this is one I really want to identify here. Iceberg. This is aquatic, so helps sharks a little bit. But this is from the core set. At the start of the set, before drawing hands, each player searches their deck for an animal costing 20 food or less and plays in the front row. These animals must remain in the front row throughout the set. The first player to lose their chosen animal loses the set. Guess who costs 20 food exactly? That bad boy. So you would play him. You search your deck for him and you put him in your front row at the start of the set, and your goal is to keep the blue shark alive. And the blue shark is very good for this role because it costs 20 food, so you're maximizing your food that you can get here because the animal has to be 20 food. B, it has good stats and it's not super squishy, so nothing's going to one-shot it. It effectively has 16 health. Oh, excuse me. And C, it's fast and your opponent cannot evade it. So it's something that your opponent could be trying for dodge strats, or your opponent could be playing something that's strong but slow, and the blue shark can completely get around evasion, and a lot of times is going to be going first. So great candidate for the iceberg. It's something I wanted to point out. And Snowy Mountain, the first player to have an animal survive in the front row for 4 full rounds wins. Only one animal can be in the front row at a time. Sharks are great candidates for this because they're strong. And like I've kept saying repeatedly throughout this video, they have great stats. And for this objective, you want something with good stats. If you can get a great white shark into the front row with this objective, you're probably going to win the set because nothing is really able to 1v1 a great white shark. So it has a ton of health, it has a ton of attack, nothing wants to be in the front row against this thing. And so sharks make great candidates for this objective. So some mixture of these, I would run at least a couple of these in my shark decks. You could throw in anything else you think is good. Any aquatic objective is pretty good. Objectives I would stay away from are stuff like lake, where the goal is to play 6 animals, because sharks are expensive and you're not gonna. I mean, the cheaper ones are 10 and 7 apiece. The lake is meant for factions that have, or decks that are running a bunch of super cheap things that are like 4 or 5 each. So not something I'd run with sharks. But sharks are very flexible and they're very good overall. They don't have a lot of weaknesses, and so they'd work with any objectives. But this video is getting long. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you're excited to play sharks. It's a very, very strong archetype. I highly recommend it. I'll do some deck building videos of them in the future. It's a faction that an archetype that I really enjoy running. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and check out our Discord if you're interested in learning more. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.